Good morning, everyone. Bright and early this Sunday morning. This is day 2 of the PSC Investment Expo 2022, and I am Danny Laurel, your host for today's event. And I just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and happy to be here because there is a lot in store. I've hosted so many events, and I really have to say that if you're wondering whether waking up this early on a Sunday is worth it, I'm here to tell you that it is. Yesterday was such a wonderfully filled eventful, packed event with so much learning, so much insights, and I assure you that your time will be very, very well spent today. Now, for those of you who were here yesterday and managed to take advantage of that, welcome back. Glad to have you back here. Thank you so much for that amazing participation yesterday. And for those of you who missed out on yesterday's session, better late than never. You can still revisit all of the talks. The Expo platform will remain accessible. That's until February 28th. So basically an entire month where you can watch and rewatch all of the informative sessions and presentations, panel discussions anytime at your convenience. Now, yesterday it was really so packed with so much information that I really think that those that had participated would really want to rewatch again, take down those notes, keep it on file for when you need it again, especially those very, very golden nuggets of investment advice. So what do you do? Simply visit the auditorium and click on a specific tab called On Demand. So for now, we will share with you a recap of the PSC Investment Expo Day 1. Let's watch this. Welcome to the PSC Investment Expo 2022. This is supposed to be the first of its kind to be hosted by the Philippine Stock Exchange.
I now declare the PSE Investment Expo 2022 open.
All of the above strategic undertakings are meant to contribute to the realization of the Commission's ambitious 888 at 88 goal.
We're actually constantly looking at various ways that we can add more value to our users, and this typically includes working with more and more different types of partnerships, right?
Why invest now? So let's start with Pam, Miguel, and let's end with the president, of course. Pam, why now? One word.
Opportunities.
Opportunities, Miguel?
Uptrend.
Uptrend. Sir Manzon?
I will use a number. I will use Miguel's number, 8,010.
It's very special to have more people talking about money. Kasi especially sa culture ng Filipino, di ba? Medyo taboo siya, ayaw pag-usapan. But it's nice to have more people, like maybe like me, or people like me. And also looking at Antoinette and then Sir Floyd, that we're younger, and even though we are younger, we can learn how to be responsible with money kaagad.
But at this point, I don't think the index is expensive because we're trading at 16 times PE, which is, a little bit below historical average. Weren't able to start investing this January, so a second chance this February. So I do hope that, with what you've learned today, na sana matuloy na ang inyong investment and you can invest successfully.
Here are some key takeaways that we want to leave you with. So before you commit your hard-earned money in stock investing, know first what works for you and what type of investor you are. Are you a short-term trader or a long-term investor? You can also be both. Knowing this will help you decide on the best investing strategy that would fit your profile and your goals.
Gosh, 14,000 participants. Yesterday, we were just, counting. We were expecting 5,000, I think, when they started planning this event. And then suddenly it just ballooned up to 12,000. And now we're officially at 14,000. So thank you so much for that participation. We've really gained so much energy from you guys. And if you enjoyed watching that, then you are in for a treat, because day 2 of this investment expo is just as exciting, as fun, and as full of learnings. Now, to give you an idea of what's in store for you today, I think this next plenary session is something that since yesterday, people have been clamoring about. It's a plenary session on digital and crypto assets, and that's going to be scheduled in a bit. Keep your questions, written somewhere, because you're gonna have to be fast in posing that. After that, there will be 4 breakout sessions lined up throughout the day. So feel free to choose which one you would like to join this morning, and then also later this afternoon. And again, you can always rewatch the sessions that you were not able to join. So no problem if you missed that. And of course, we will have our closing ceremony where we will be announcing the winners of the photo booth and show you guys the leaderboard contest and grand raffle prizes. So again, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, sorry na lang, you might be a little far behind, but you do have the whole day opportunity to catch up. Again, amazing prizes, from earpods all the way to MacBook computers, to an iPad rather, and to iPhones. So, everybody must participate. And for that photo booth contest, pictures with the most number of likes will be eligible to win all of these prizes. You can see that rolling on your screens here, a lot of fun pictures, but we still need to see which one is the coolest picture, which one is going to be garnering the most likes. So be as creative as possible. It's your one chance to win best selfie of this expo. You guys can still take your selfies in our virtual booth after each session. Now, as for the expo leaderboard, are you ready? Who are the front runners right now? I'm gonna be seeing, Clarissa Eileen C. Wow, 8,780 points. It's so hard to garner these points. I don't know how they're calculated, to be honest, but rest assured that there's an entire system that's making sure who is the one that's posing the most questions, who's the one participating the most here. You've also got Michael Reyes closing in. So malapit na, just overtake Miss Clarissa. And finally, we've also got Cian Paul Lasaga. So a bunch of people here. Thank you so much for participating, and hope you guys win that iPad mini or that iMac that you guys have been hoping for. I think some have been saying, I'm manifesting this laptop. So congratulations. Again, you guys can catch up. If you're not on the leaderboard, just watch today's session live, visit the exhibit booths, and of course, engage with the booth representatives. All right, I know everyone's excited to win these prizes. And as we said, there's extrinsic motivation here. There's also intrinsic motivation. And I think everybody else is also here to learn. Let's now shift gears. Let's talk about one of the hottest topics in the markets these days, cryptocurrency. Now, while interest in digital assets is spreading like wildfire, understanding what they are, how they're changing the financial markets still needs a lot of explanation. So let's meet our esteemed panel who will help us with this specific discussion. First, we have Mr. Vicente Graciano P, Felizmenio Jr. He's the Director, Markets and Securities Regulation Department of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Hello, sir. And joining him, of course, from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, we are joined by their Director for Technology Risk Innovation Supervision Department, Mr. Melchor Plabasan. Hi, sir. Completing this panel is Union Bank of the Philippines' Chief Technology and Operations Officer and Chief Transformation Officer, Mr. Henry R. Aguda. Hi, Sir Henry. And we've also got Mr. Nauman Mustafa, the Chief Executive Officer of coins.ph. He's also with us this morning. Hi, Nauman. And of course, moderating this discussion is none other than the PSE's Chief Operating Officer, Atty. Roel A. Refran. Good morning, gentlemen. I will hand over the floor to our moderator, Atty. Roel. A lot to be discussed here, Atty. Roel, and a lot of eyes watching you this morning. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Danny. Magandang umaga. Good morning to everyone. I hope we will all absorb all the learnings because I am as excited as you probably are, as we have esteemed gentlemen, very knowledgeable, very experienced. So when we talk about the subject matter, thoughts, probably ideas like blockchain, crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, metaverse even, no? I've been reading the past few weeks, the idea of a virtual world, metaverse, no? But the future and the intersection of these concepts with the financial institutions, financial markets, is what we will see today. No, everyone is talking about it. Is this all hype? What's in it for us as investors? What should we take note of before we jump in? So let's kick it off with our first resource person, Nauman from coins.ph. Nauman is the president of coins.ph, and coins.ph is considered to be one of the early adopters, early movers in this space, no, in the crypto ecosystem in the Philippine market. Nauman, can you walk us through? No, you've seen this from day one in the Philippines. Now, if you've been here for a long time, what are cryptocurrencies? What does it mean to the investor? What does it mean to people who would like to use these for whatever purposes they may have?
Thanks, Atty. Roel. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me and being a part of such a great panel. So before we start discussing cryptocurrencies, it's really important to understand what blockchain is, right? And if I break the word into portions, so it's block and a chain. So block is basically a bunch of data, like how you have ledgers in your books of accounts where you say A pays to B. That basically forms the data and it becomes a part of a ledger. So block is a bunch of data and record, and in case of Bitcoin, it's just a list of transactions, right? In case of Ethereum, we've seen transactions as well as other form of smart contracts that we can talk a bit later. So blocks, basically, when you form a block, these are all the transactions being listed on the blocks, right? And of course, blocks have a limitation. At the moment, in the case of Bitcoin, the limitation is around 1,500 transactions. So once the block is being completed and is being broadcasted on the network, and the next block comes into play, that's how the blockchain is formed. So it's like a bunch of blocks being linked to each other, and that's how the blockchain is formed. Cryptocurrencies are basically a native currencies for different blockchains. For our original blockchain that we call, for that we have Bitcoin. For Ethereum, which itself is a smart contract enabled decentralized blockchain, Ether is its native currencies. But on the Ethereum blockchain itself, there are other protocols and other providers and other currencies being built, which we call as ERC20 tokens. So all of these do form a part of cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies are basically a medium that you use to fulfill a certain form of an action, whether it would be payment of transactions, whether it would be like voting of transactions or voting of a decision, or it would be either purchasing of something called NFT, which we've seen quite a lot recently. So this is a use case of what cryptocurrencies are being used for.
So Norman, it's like there's a digital e-commerce, digital electronic commerce, founded upon a technology which you just discussed, which is really the blockchain digital ledger technology. Is that a simple way of looking at the ecosystem?
I would say two more things associated to them, which is not associated to many e-commerce. Basically, one is that it is open, so it's visible to all. It's not like it's hidden, so it's visible to all. And the second thing, and that's one of the key feature of any blockchain, is that it is decentralized. It's not controlled by a central organization or by just a single person, which, in many cases today you have social media, which is controlled by one company. But in the case of blockchain, it is a decentralized technology. And that's why it basically allows a lot of transparency. It allows a lot of great features that would not be a part of a centralized organization, such as privacy, such as no fraud, such as no one can go and change the data. All of those great features will be a part of a blockchain.
Understand, Norman. And when you look at the end user, right? Use we will define in different ways, and we will have our monetary authority, central bank, as well as our Securities Commission to help us through that later. But when you look at the user, based on the profile of the users that you have in your ecosystem, why are they subscribing to this concept? And can you walk us through that, the use case for them?
Sure. Thanks. So initially, when the blockchain technology came into being many years ago, the most common use case that people were experimenting with and people actually use a lot was to transmit money from one place to the other. And a simple example would be that when you send funds over blockchain, it can take any time between a few seconds to maybe a minute or 5 minutes, thus avoiding sending transactions over multiple business days. And the second important part was that sending money over blockchain was much cheaper than sending money over other sources of remittance services. So this was one of the most common use case that users in coins and other cryptocurrency regulated exchanges do use, is to send money. Now, whether it's overseas Filipino workers sending money, whether there are some freelance workers sitting and working from Philippines and receiving their salary or their consultancy services in form of cryptocurrencies. So that was one of the most common use case that we saw.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nauman. And this is really just us scratching the surface because, it's like an iceberg. When you look at this topic, we can go as deep as we can. But for the moment, let's just understand what Nauman said, the technology underlying the asset and the asset providing certain use cases. Thank you for that. Let's shift gears now and call on Henry from Union Bank on screen. Union Bank, as we all know, is also a very innovative bank, probably the leader in terms of innovation as a BSP supervised financial institution. Technological innovation has grown by leaps and bounds, Henry, to the point that it's now transforming user experience, transforming the way you do business. And the underlying technology that Nauman discussed briefly, the distributed ledger technology, can you also, from your perspective, help laymanize that for us, Henry? And what does it mean now in terms of products that we can access? Because in the end, it's opportunities, accessibility. Can you walk us through that, Henry, please?
Yeah, thank you, Attorney. And first of all, good morning and congratulations to the PSC for this convention. So Nauman gave a very great explanation of what blockchain is. Siguro just to add to what he's explained, I'll try to laymanize. So Nauman mentioned about the distributed ledger. So one of the examples that I keep using in explaining what a distributed ledger is, I try to conceptualize it in the sari-sari store scenario. Alam mo, ang sari-sari store, ang tawag natin dyan, pantry ng bayan. So every barangay, may sari-sari store. And that's your friendly neighborhood sari-sari store. Pag pumunta ka kay Aling Nena, may listahan siya. And ang kagandahan kasi, kung kakilala ka ni Aling Nena sari-sari store, kuha ka ng sabon, ililista niya, isusulat mo yung amount, sabon, at saka kung may utang ka, susulat mo yung utang. That's a ledger. That's a ledger. Now, in the concept of the blockchain, if you can imagine a world where all the sari-sari stores have one ledger lang, and all of them have the same copy of the same ledger. So, si Aling Nena, si Aling Maria, and so many other sari-sari stores in maybe the province or Metro Manila only access one ledger. Now, how is that innovative? Kasi you can now go to any sari-sari store and kukuha ka ng sabon halimbawa sa sari-sari store in Cebu, pero ang gusto mo, bibili mo siya doon sa neighborhood sari-sari store mo. Because they're in one ledger, you can do transaction better. Hindi ka na magko-compare ng iba-ibang sari-sari store. And the nice thing about it is, if each sari-sari store has the same copy of the ledger, mahirap nang dayahin. Kasi it's not a centralized ledger. And Nauman mentioned about decentralized. That's the decentralized concept. Because everybody has their own copy. One, it's very secure because you don't lose one copy and you don't have a list of the transaction anymore. And no one person can defraud the transaction. So in a layman's term, yung blockchain is parang listahan ng bayan. So for a sari-sari store concept, which is the pantry ng bayan, if you blockchain it, you now have the listahan ng bayan. In a laymanized term, I hope that that's the decentralized ledger power of blockchain.
Correct. Henry, one word comes to my mind, trust. Mapagkakatiwalaan ko ba yung listahan ng bayan na yan, right? When you look at, data is the new oil today. Baka naman that listahan ng bayan, no, is something that can be sometimes subject to certain fraud, certain, I don't know. What did you say about that? Can it be trusted?
Yes. Now, in the concept of trust, blockchain has what you call the consensus algorithm. Consensus is, grupo tayo ng mga tao, mag-agree tayo kung ano yung version of truth. Walang fake news baga. Now, in the concept of the sari-sari store, kung lahat sila merong kopya ng ledger, and let's say may dispute, sabihin ni Aling Nena, uy, mali yung lista, yung sabon binili sa akin, hindi sa'yo. All of the sari-sari stores in the Philippines will now vote, and 51% wins. So, in order for you to defraud the blockchain, more than half of the people should be in cahoots with you. So yun yung mechanism niya kasi walang centralized authority. Now, why is Union Bank excited with this blockchain phenomenon, and why are we there? Because we believe one of the use cases being cryptocurrency, which is an investment instrument, you need trust. And who can you trust more in a financial institution than your friendly neighborhood bank? And that's why Union Bank, because we're very much regulated, supervised, and guided by the BSP, lahat ng produkto na ilabas namin dyan, dumaan sa masusing pag-aaral ng BSP. So, if it's a product that's been launched by the banking sector, I'm sure, mapagkakatiwalaan mo yun, you can trust that.
That's correct. So, because that's very important for everyone. When you look at this topic, ang daming scams, Henry. There's a lot of, as you said, no, fake news, fake coins, ang daming dead coins, no. So, in the concept of a banking institution, no, not just Union Bank, but even there's a lot of institutions that are now duly licensed to be digital banks. There's 6 of them, no. When you look at that, what's the intersection? Is that in the concept of stable coins? I've heard about that, Henry, or is that really the technology transforming the way you interface, the way you provide services, real time, faster, as you said, trustworthy? Where does it go now?
Wow, that's a multi-dimensional question, attorney. The intersection, for one, is the technology itself. So in Union Bank, we started experimenting with blockchain as far as 5 years ago. In fact, we wrote a book on that one together with fellow Union bankers that tracks the 5-year journey of blockchain in the Philippines. Now, the technology kasi allows us a lot of efficiency in our operations. And you'd be surprised. We use blockchain for some of our regulatory reporting, so that when we say na we've reported, we know that on the blockchain, the BSP can be assured of the provenance of the report. And we use blockchain also to secure the identities of our customers. So maraming application ng blockchain. In fact, one of the very good applications we started with early on was how do you address a problem where rural banks don't have access to one another and to the basic banking requirements in the industry. So we found a cheaper solution, and we gave the solution to the rural banks in the form of I2I, which is a platform called Island to Island that allows us to provide them a platform to interconnect the rural banks. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if not for blockchain. Kasi mura lang si blockchain and madaling i-program. So the intersection is technology. How you use technology in your banking operations will now depend on how imaginative you are in doing that. The other financial aspect of it being an instrument, we've not offered that yet. Imagine, ang ganda sana if you have a banking app that allows you to buy and sell cryptos kagad. Wala pa kami doon kasi we're still making sure that we have all the safeguards there, and we're still going through regulatory approval. But hopefully, within the year, we'll make crypto trading as easy as doing bank services.
Okay, maraming salamat, Henry. Just as a final note, it seems that in the banking system there has to be a solution to a problem, And you did mention a lot of that, no? So technology, the blockchain is not just really so that sikat ka, so that you are in vogue, no? It's not that. You are finding a solution to a problem. Otherwise, why even change the way you do it, right, Henry?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, to that point, attorney, and perfect, my segue is, if you want to experience how it is to trade in retail for cryptos, try nyo muna yung bonds.ph. You know, bonds.ph is a normal retail bond. You can buy bonds as low as 5,000 pesos. But people don't know that the underlying technology that makes that happen is actually blockchain. So the bonds are not yet tokenized, pero the mechanism and the technology that allows you to buy and sell Philippine retail bonds is already in blockchain. So experience that, and that's gone through regulatory approval. That's in the partnership with the Bureau of Treasury, and who knows, in the future, that same experience of buying and selling retail bonds can now be applied safely and securely on cryptocurrencies.
That's very important, Henry. Thank you. Alam mo, one of our participants, no, he said, see, this is Hector Legaspi. Thank you, Sir Henry. Kahit yung tambay sa amin, maiintindihan na ang crypto. That's the explanation mo. So you laymanized it in a way where we all can understand, no? It's something that is very useful for us. Maraming salamat, no, Henry. Now, shift gears a bit. You know, we have still a lot of things to talk about. But when you talk about this topic, no, of course, there's the technology. There's also the crypto, the digital asset. But overriding all of these will have to be risk. No, we talk about these are innovations and there's risk. When we talk about risk, of course, we would have to mention financial stability, which is not just really the core function of the central bank, but it's for other regulators as well. No, nandiyan yung SEC, nandiyan yung PDIC. There's a lot of components to that. But let's probably start off with our resource person, no? Si Director Mel from the Central Bank, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Let's have him on screen. Good morning, Director Mel.
Hi, good morning, Attorney Roel. And of course, thank you so much, PSE, for this opportunity to share our insights.
Maraming salamat, no? Director Mel, diretso tayo, no? When you look at these, let's set aside muna yung technology, but let's look at now what is, you know, being, sabihin na natin, being offered to the, you know, let's say to the public, no, by way of it providing to be what's called a digital money. No, there's a lot of concepts. This is like, you know, it's like I can put that in my wallet. There's now the concept of electronic wallet and all that. No, but there are divided opinions, Director Mel, across other markets, other countries. No, some are saying let's ban this cryptocurrency. You know, Russia has come up with a position paper that somehow says let's just regulate it, no, rather than ban it. China has a different approach. The other central bankers, the other monetary authorities have different approach. In the Philippines, is cryptocurrency allowed by the central bank? And what should we know and what should we look out for with respect to making sure we are dealing with a trusted service provider? We are dealing with, you know, something that has already gone past through the regulatory examination and scrutiny of the central bank.
Yeah. So, Attorney Roel, cryptocurrency per se is really, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. So, cryptocurrency per se is not the one being regulated, but actually the activities that being supported by cryptocurrency. Let's say if you are using cryptocurrency for, let's say, for remittance, for exchange, of course, then you should be regulated by you mentioned about BSP and other regulatory authority. Let's say for securities or ICO, that should be covered by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now in the Philippines, and of course most other jurisdictions that have already adopted a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency, we consider them not as currency but rather as digital asset or virtual asset. You know, because we're veering away, especially the regulators, the central banks, we're veering away to from calling these cryptocurrencies as currency or money, because as you know, there's really a technical and legal definition for currency or money. So it should be backed by the central bank or by a monetary authority. It should be stable, and as you know, aside of course from stable coin, most other mainstream cryptocurrencies are very volatile. Yeah, but but essentially, if you are doing cryptos and you should be regulated by the BSP. That's really the intent of our circular 1108. So with that regulation, you are required to secure a license from the BSP. So that licensing process, as mentioned by our friend Henry, is really a vetting process. So we really conduct thorough evaluation. We do on-site and off-site supervision. We do systems walkthrough, technical review before these products and services are offered to the public. And when you secure your license as a virtual asset service provider, then you are now required to comply with the BSP's regulations, particularly on, let's say, AML, consumer protection, or even cybersecurity.
Oh, that's a very important, Director Mel, no? Policy clarification you made. No? You are regulating the service providers, which we now call the virtual asset service providers. Yeah. Director Mel, we aligned that with the Financial Action Task Force. No? Ito yung based in Paris, the FATF, that these are the VASPs, VASPs, that they will have to make sure that they are aligned with yung anti-money laundering that you mentioned, AML, because marami na rin tong, the good and the bad. The bad siguro, when you look at this is because it can be, outside of the formal regulated channels. That's why they say maybe, yung mga criminals or yung mga, the bad guys will use this to transact their business and just convert it from the digital asset to fiat currency, the real money. Is that something that was top of mind also on the BSP's minds when you were looking at how do we make sure that we do not stifle innovation, but ang dami nating potential risk factors dito?
Yeah, to answer the first question, Roel. So una, because we follow certain standards when it comes to policy formulation. So we make sure that it's risk-based, that it's that the internal and external stakeholders are properly consulted, and we also did some benchmarking. Now, for this particular one you mentioned about Financial Action Task Force, yeah, we heavily considered the pronouncement of Financial Action Task Force when it comes to the crafting of this particular regulation, and I think. There is a misconception that when you deal with crypto assets that it's really prone, although it may be prone to criminal or other illicit activities, but as mentioned by Nauman and Henry, it's also very transparent. That's why, given, let's say, sophisticated solutions, a lot of law enforcement agencies were able to successfully investigate and prosecute activities using crypto assets. I mean, particularly illicit activities using crypto assets.
Correct. But Director Mel, thank you for that. For the public, assuming they are, let's say, looking at a particular service provider, what's your suggestion? How do they validate that they have the VASP license? And I understand from Nauman, Nauman, we also have, the EMI license, Director Mel, EMI, RTC, and dami natin mga acronym. But for us, the investor and the users, we just don't want to be scammed because in the end, we know how hard earned yung mga pera ng investors are, right, Director Mel?
Yeah.
Saan namin malalaman yan? Is there a website? Do we call you? How do we do that?
So from time to time, we would probably post an advisory in our official social media pages, official social media pages of the BSP. So we direct the consumers on the links wherein they can find the list of. It's regularly updated on a monthly basis. So there's a list of registered virtual asset service providers. In fact, as of yesterday, we have already issued 18 licenses. So again, our suggestion is to only deal with these registered entities. Why? Because if they encounter any problem, there's legal protection. The BSP can always assist them because there's consumer assistance mechanism. So again, in terms of trust, it's better to deal with BSP regulated, because if you're not regulated in the Philippines, it's like going to, let's say, a gray or a black market, right? So I mean, in terms of let's say, if you need to enforce, let's say, certain, I mean, assuming you encounter any problem with the virtual asset service provider. So I think
Correct.
it's best to deal only with those that are registered with the BSP.
Tsaka Director Mel, ito wala nang face-to-face interaction, ano? Click through with the public. So talagang it's very important, you said. For all you know, no, that this could be scammers pretending to be someone else, no? So we have to really be, so we can resort to, as you said, no, may mga public protection assistance program as well that they can readily utilize, no, in the event they have questions, in the event meron sila mga problema, even with the VASP providers duly licensed.
Yeah. They are also, our consumer assistance mechanism is there to assist all of our consumers.
Okay. Dr. Mel, one last point before we go to the other regulator, the Securities Commission. We see that there's a lot of banks, of course, parang si Union Bank, very much a leader in this one. And then also, we have also heard of several central banks thinking of what's called central bank digital currency. You know, in fact, we saw that you also have a policy statement on that. But is this something that's readily embraced by our banking institutions? No, the technology, and because banks should be very conservative, right, Director Mel, by nature. It's in their DNA because they are, it's a fiduciary relationship. They are being trusted to take care of the funds from their depositors. No, so how do you see this now? How do you marry a conservative approach versus something that is also fraught with risk? And lalo na sa Pilipinas, marami rin siguro tayong kailangang tulungan because sometimes we are too easy to trust, no? Madali tayong magtiwala. So how do you see this for the entire ecosystem in the banking industry, Dr. Mel?
Yeah. So in terms of adoption in the banking sector, I think our banks, as you mentioned, are quite conservative. So they are still very early in the game in terms of considering blockchain technology or virtual assets, except of course for Union Bank, which is who is a game changer in this particular field. But of course, in the next few months, of course, given the rise of digital banks, and of course, some of our non-bank financial institutions changing or shifting their business strategy. So it's really just a matter of time before these institutions really join the crypto bandwagon.
Maraming salamat, Director Mel. In fact, meron tayong participant, no, si Angelo Cruz. He's nagpapasalamat, no, is thanking everyone for including this in our forum today. Talaga na matututunan na ng lahat ang future, no? Napaka-importante na matutunan ng lahat ang future of finance and banking. Salamat, no, Angelo Cruz. Thank you very much, Director Mel. Let's now have a chit-chat with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We fondly call him Director Mioni of the SEC. Director Mioni, magandang umaga, and maraming salamat for obliging us, no, on this very important topic dahil kailangan talaga sana namin matutunan ng mas maigi to, Director Mioni.
Yeah. Good morning to all. Good morning, Bayan. Good morning to the investors who are tuned in. Yeah. First of all, we have the usual disclaimer that the views and opinions and insights that I would be proclaiming here is only my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the official views of the Commission, and that's the usual. Okay. Now, this is so because more so because we still have to adapt and formalize the adoption of the rules on the digital asset exchange as well as the digital asset offerings. But we would like to probably start with some basics that on the concerns of the SEC, and the SEC for all to understand is that we are here actually primarily one to protect the investors And number two, to ensure that there is integrity in the market. And we have seen that when there is no integrity, it could lead really to a collapse and contribute to the collapse of even the economy that happens in 2008. Okay, and then of course, we would like to see a prevention of systemic risk. And all of these basic objectives would apply, and even the principles behind them would apply to even, you call it digital assets, cryptocurrencies. But given that this is actually an investment forum, yeah, I would like to go to some basic views. Okay, so because we all know that sound investing is all about managing the expected returns and the expected risk. Okay, and this is true in any publicly listed companies. When you buy into a PLC shares, okay, you want to have a view on whether one, is it a fair price? Second, or is it overpriced? Or thirdly, is it underpriced? Because if it is overpriced, then what you do is actually to sell whatever you hold. Or probably if you are a very good strategist, sophisticated enough to do a short sale, then you do a short sale. If it is underpriced, then on the expectation that eventually that price would go up, you buy now and later on actually expect that when it goes up, you sell them. It's a buy low, it's a sell high concept. It's the same thing, okay? And we also have to understand the components of the market price, because market price could be looked at as having two components. Number one, okay, is actually the intrinsic value of the company, and it is reflected in the price. And that intrinsic value, where does it come from? It comes from actually the cash flow that would be generated out of the operations of the corporation, out of the business of the corporation. Okay? Correct. And then, of course, you cannot discount because there is a secondary market to it. Okay? Then there is what you call a market forces component in the market price. And it is governed by what you call the law of supply and demand. If there is a demand by the buyers, then it would go up. If there is a supply by the sellers, then probably it would be going down. Okay. And these are very basic, and this is something that all of our investors that are tuned in should be able to understand. Okay. Now, what's the good thing about a PLC? Okay. In a PLC, it is required and it is governed by what you call a full disclosure regime. Okay. So before you do an IPO, you provide information about you, about your company, about your business, about the people behind the business, and about the numbers behind the business. Okay. Because information is not static, it is dynamic. Okay. Then we have what you call a continuing disclosure obligation. Okay. That's why there's always a disclosure in the PSA. Now, going back, can we apply it now? If you look at crypto assets or cryptocurrency or digital assets as being an investment, can you apply these basic concepts? Because the question now is that, what is the source of value of any digital assets or crypto assets? Okay. Or is it purely, okay, because in a sound investment environment, okay, probably 90% would come from the intrinsic value and 10% from the market forces. But in this type of investment, where would the intrinsic value be coming from? Our thought process in coming up with the regulation or even in evaluating and assessing any application would always go back to this. Okay, so what is your business case? Okay, correct. So again, I think this basic concept should not be lost in if you are an investor and you want to invest in digital assets. Correct. Make sure that you are able to grasp all of these basic concepts.
Correct. Dr. Mioni, you extensively addressed the basic question, from the Securities and Exchange perspective, SEC's perspective. Ito ba investment products ba to? Because we have been discussing a while ago the technology, the use cases, and we have seen that there's use cases appropriate. But now, that should be at some point magkakaroon ng regulation to also walk through ano ba yung mga considerations, because you mentioned meron na tayong mga regulated katulad ng mga stocks, katulad ng mga bonds. Ito na ho yung sinabi nyo, no? May intrinsic value na yan, may cash flows. Ito naman ho Director Mioni, itong pinag-uusapan nating crypto asset, no? Iba-iba yan, may Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, ang dami na ho. May NFTs, non-fungible. Parang nakakalula, Director Mioni. Napaka taas na ng level ng, let's say, ng complexity niya. But to the investors, it's basic. Is it something that, we should consider? As you said, mababaylo, sell high ko ba to? Ngayon, it's $38,000. Ang Bitcoin nung November, it was around $69,000. So, Dr. Mioni, that at some point will be probably coming up with policy formulation from the Securities Commission and Exchange Commission kasi may protection of the investing public consideration to, Director Mioni.
Yeah, definitely. And probably we would also look at the scenario. But first is that we would like to make a statement that SEC is not against the DLT. It's not against blockchain. And definitely we even encourage the use of it in the market. And we favor innovation. Okay. But there are so many things happening right now in the market, like in the case of you might be hearing of actually the SEC issuing some advisory or even a cease and desist order to some companies who are attracting investors that they are into crypto investing, blah, 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 blah. When in fact, these are all scams. Okay, they just want your money and they don't even probably invest it in any crypto assets. So those scams, definitely, we will go after them. Okay, correct. Now, there are actually use cases for the market. Like what? Somebody has approached us of what you call a tokenizing securities. Okay. So using the DLT or the blockchain to represent, instead of a paper certificate, represent it by tokens. Because the eventual distribution or even the secondary market trading of those could be made more efficient. Okay. But we all know that the current system right now is that we live in what you call an intermediated environment. Okay. In an IPO, you have the investment houses. In the secondary market, you have the brokers. Okay. The DLT and the blockchain, okay, provides for an opportunity for this intermediated world. But the question is, it becomes a policy issue. Do we want to destroy what we have built for so many number of years and then shift into this DLT or blockchain? Or how do we do it? How do we transition it? Can we divide it between products that are actually under a DLT blockchain environment as against products that would still contend in the traditional approach? So these are part of the policy consideration of the SEC. And another, of course, we have what you call securitizing or securitized tokens. Okay, so meaning coming up with a portfolio of assets and then issuing a token out of it, and basically the value would be on the basis of the underlying tokens. And those tokens could represent real assets, PLCs, or it could represent as well, again, another form of digital assets. So these are things that that we are realistic about, that is already out there in the environment. Okay, so when we come up with the rules and regulations on the digital asset exchange and digital assets offering, all of this would be taken into consideration.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Mioni. We also have, we have a view that I think it's already here. We recognize that this asset is already among us, and some regulators say let's instead of denying that it's here, let's come up with prudential measures. As Director Mioni mentioned, napaka-extensive ng considerations by the SEC, BSP also, and with her from Union Bank and Nauman. Shift gears. Maraming salamat, Director Mioni and Director Mel, for the regulatory side. Let's do some, ito parang ito yung version namin ng fast talk in the PSE, no? I have 3 questions here. Actually, yung dalawa pang fast talk. The third one is, for purpose of per insight. It's just answer by yes or no. Yes or no for each of the two questions. I will ask each panelist. First question to Nauman. Are these products, when you talk about cryptocurrency or the blockchain, are these the future of finance and financial instruments? Nauman, yes or no? And a quick explanation, please.
Well, that's a very tricky question. Cryptocurrencies are not financial instruments because they do not represent cash or contract is establishing a right to receive a cash. But it is an experience says that crypto assets are generally considered an intangible asset, except in a few situations such as investment product. So that would be my answer, just to play safe.
Okay. Thank you for that, Nauman. Henry, yes or no? Are these the future of finance or financial instruments?
So I'll take it one step forward. Yes, it is the future.
And quick, why do you say it's the future?
Well, if you follow the trend of history, we went from rocks to gold to paper. Now it's going to be digital. So if you go by the trend, everything's going to be digitized in the form of transaction. So it's no longer going to be a transfer of record of value. It will be a digital transfer of value. So to me, it's a yes. That's where we're headed.
Thank you. Fourth Industrial Revolution. I think we are in there. Dr. Mel, yes or no? Are these the future of finance and financial instruments?
Yeah, I think it is the future. I mean, they are the future if we are talking about crypto assets and the technology behind it, because again, with the mainstreaming of decentralized finance, expanded use cases, and of course the growing number of regulators that are adapting regulatory framework for virtual asset service providers or virtual assets, I think yes.
Thank you, Director Mel. Director Mioni, ito ba yes or no, Director Mioni? Napaka-wide. Is this the future of what we will call finance or financial products, financial instruments?
Yes, definitely. There are already people who have approached us of, tokenizing securities, meaning using digital recording as a form of recording ownership of assets. So even our depository, and eventually I would suppose that even our transfer agents would look at this, and definitely it would have a major role in the future financial scenario.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mioni. Second question. Should you invest in these products? No, the word I use is invest, but actually, should you use this? No, if there's a technology you underlying it, should you either use that technology offered by service providers, or if you see it as an investment product, should you invest it? Alam natin, in a pandemic, hard-earned money, we conserve that, and to the extent that we can put it to better use, then maybe we can think about that. Let's start off with Nauman again. Should you invest in these products or use these products?
I would say that a simple term that we typically use and referring to our panelists is something called DYOR, do your own research, actually. And that is very important because it reduces the number of uninformed investors in cryptocurrencies. It encourages research and understanding of what technology lies behind it. So yes, do invest in the research of this technology. And once you also understand the underlying risks and all the nitty-gritties, then if it suits your risk profile, then yes, you should think about investing.
Thank you very much, Nauman. Henry, will you tell your friends to consider investing in these products or use the technology?
So personal, I'll use the same disclaimer. This is not the policy of the bank, but my personal advocacy. I'd say yes, subject to the following. One, keep it to the top 10 coins. And if you want to check the top 10 coins, marketcapcoin.com, you can check the top 10 there. Second, it shouldn't be above 5% of your total investable portfolio. Meaning it's money that you can afford to lose, hindi pang bayad ng renta, hindi pang bayad ng kuryente. And third, as Nauman said, do your own research. And yun nga, I'll plug it again. We wrote a book on this one. If you want to know more, we've made it easy for you to see how blockchain has evolved for the past 5 years in the Philippines. So, yun, it's a qualified yes.
Maraming salamat. Qualified yes. Pero common kayo with Nauman, make sure, you understand, and the way to understand is, there's trusted sources out there. Do your own research and read up and ask the central bank, ask the regulators, the SEC, ask those who are doing it already, don't just believe what you read. Ang daming fake news. Okay, Director Mel, same question. Should the investing should the public touch interfacing with the banks use this or invest in these products?
Yeah. So briefly, Roel, the BSP is not endorsing the use of cryptocurrencies. Again, the purpose of our regulation is really meant to protect the public, to protect the entire financial system. That said, the regulated financial system. That said, I would also answer a qualified yes. Yes, if you have money that you can afford to lose, if you want to try it, if you are, let's say, if you know how it works and you are aware about the risk and how to protect yourself. Otherwise, if you have not done your homework, just go with the traditional investments that you have always been familiar with.
Correct. In fact, Director Mel and also for Director Mioni, meron yung game, yung Axie Infinity. Di ba? That's a play to earn. And there, ang dami ng mga naglalaro niyan, a lot of time, a lot of resources being put into that. So I think this is something that's already here, but I think very important to hear from our panelists. And then Director Mioni, you have seen this not just in our market. You've seen this with your co-regulators, securities commissions. Is this something that the investing public should, at this point, we are in 2022, regulatory certainty, some are clear, some are not yet clear, as an investment instrument? What is a yes or no? Should they invest in this?
Yeah. My answer as of now is that it's a no, okay? Because one, just yesterday, we know that the value of the cryptocurrencies around the world has gone down by already 48%. Okay, so if somebody, okay, would be able to find a way of finding the intrinsic value in any cryptocurrency, and thus come to a conclusion that it is an investment worth looking into, then I want to hear from that person. Because I also want to hear from him, how do you assess the market value of any cryptocurrency on whether it is underpriced or overpriced? Okay, so that's it. Now, if you could find them, then it's up to you. If you want to actually raise your money investing it, it's up to those persons. But for now, there are more other valid or more what you call investable instruments out there that probably you could sleep well at night.
Maraming salamat, Director Mioni. Naalala ko tuloy, di ba, yung kasabihan na you first walk before you run. Bago ka tumakbo, maglakad ka muna. So, sabi nga Director Mioni, meron namang ibang instruments out there that you may probably want to do, invest in. Okay, we have a long line of questions coming. Maraming salamat from our participants. Let's start off. First question, what happens to confidentiality of information in a blockchain world? Confidential pa rin ba yan? Maybe I'll start off with, maybe I'll ask Nauman, is confidentiality of information safeguarded through the distributed ledger technology, Nauman?
All right. So I think it is important to understand that because it is a decentralized open ledger, it does keep the confidentiality in form of the anonymity of the owner. Yes, it is confidential, but because it is, again, a distributed open ledger, if someone knows about a certain address belonging to you, they can actually see the transactions on that address happening. So that has been the case many a times. We see something called whales in the crypto world, where we see suddenly, like, 3,000 of a certain asset being moved from one place to the other, and that comes out and say, hey, there's been an activity on the blockchain because something has moved from one place to the other. So it is a combination of both, actually.
Okay, thank you. That's a question actually from Marilio Incabo. Salamat. In fact, Nauman, while you're there, there's a follow-up question, and I'm sure you're able to address this fully from Wenceslao Obra, who actually has custody of my money if I invest in crypto.
So
it's decentralized. So
yes.
Where is it stored, Nauman?
So again, it depends on which custody provider you are using. If you use a regulated custody provider, as Director Mel said earlier, then a custody provider, based on its risk and risk requirements, they are responsible to maintain your crypto assets. And they, like in the case of coins.ph, we maintain crypto assets in 3 forms. One is the hot wallet, one is the warm wallet, and one is the cold storage. So these are the 3 forms of storage that we do keep to maintain all of our customer assets. And
thank you very much.
Because you're part of a regulated entity, you know that they will maintain crypto assets, which is at least 1:1, or in the case of coins, we maintain a little bit higher than that, just to be safeguarded.
Okay. Thanks for that, Nauman. Thank you. That question came from Wenceslao Obra. Salamat. And then, interesting question also. Maybe Henry, can I ask you this about security breaches? No, is it possible to discover security breaches to the blockchain technology? Ano ba yan? Is that something that monitoring tools can readily alert? And even smart contract security breach. Is it something that you can help us out on?
Oh yes, so there has been an emerging trend in the cybersecurity space where cybersecurity companies are now focusing on securing the blockchain. Kasi 4 or 5 years ago, people are saying blockchain is the latest and greatest kasi hindi mo mahahack. Okay? But subsequently, there were some issues with some chains. And now security companies are now saying we're creating specialized tools and processes to secure the blockchain. So there are tools out there, but it's still emerging and in the early stages.
Thank you very much, Henry, because we've heard of hacking incidents, no? But I think that tama ba yun, Henry, that happens not on the chain, but sa wallet itself? That's what's being hacked. It's the electronic wallet that's being hacked in other markets, no? Is that something that you've seen?
That's right. So I've not heard of the chain actually being hacked. Like I mentioned before, para dayain yung distributed ledger, dapat majority nung nandun, 51% ang mga hack. But just to add to what Nauman mentioned about custodial services, so that's one way of you protecting your asset. You entrust it to somebody, take it out of the exchange. Kung hindi mo rin lang naman i-trade ng araw-araw and you want to make sure na hindi siya mahack, you can take it out of the exchange, put it in a hot or cold wallet, or yung iba yung sa USB, or you go to the likes of coins.ph or Union Bank, where we have parang a safety deposit box solution, where in the same manner you deposit your pesos, you can also deposit your cryptos in a bank, or in another case it's going to be coin. So it's
Thank you, Henry, for that very interesting insight. No, let's shift gears now. Thank you also to Darren Cortez for that question. No? A question again from Danny Abranilla. Let's ask Director Mel. El Salvador adopted Bitcoin actually it's not just a mode of payment, as fiat currency. So the question from Danny is it also possible the Philippines will do the same in the coming years? Medyo controversial to Director Mel.
Definitely no. As I mentioned earlier, legally, I mean, the currency as defined, we have technical and legal connotation. And right now, if it's privately issued, and if the value is volatile, then it cannot be considered for any I mean, in the future probably BSP can adopt a digital version of the fiat currency, which is what we call CBDC. That one can be considered. But if it's privately issued and not backed by the central bank, then it does not fall within our definition fiat currency or legal tender.
Very well said. Tama. Because we operate in a system of laws, Director
Yeah.
Mel, and the law defines fiat currency. Hindi naman pwedeng mag-i-insert tayo ng wala namang amendment sa batas. Salamat, Director Mel. Director Mioni, may dalawa tayong question. Actually, that El Salvador question from Danny Abranilla sets us up for this question naman. With respect naman to investment, Director Mioni, Ken Hukutan asks, si Warren Buffett is very skeptical about Bitcoin. And also another question, Marco Macaraeg. There are now companies abroad buying crypto assets. In fact, some investment banks, institutional, you know that they do their research. They're also saying, we cannot not have it. My question is, given these thoughts from our listeners, is this something are these valid ideas for purposes also of evaluating further? May Philippine companies ba susunod? Are they gonna, what do you think about this for our the Philippine landscape?
Yeah, siguro bago ako pumunta sa Pilipinas yeah, what I read is that there are already 24 publicly listed companies in the US that are actually invested in crypto assets or digital assets. Okay. And of course, it comes to, it boils down to actually how do you regulate the disclosure of those, and how do you mark to market all of those things. Okay. So there's an accountancy issue also to it. Okay. That is something that probably eventually we have to look into, and we have to hold it by the horn. That's the issue. Okay. Now, definitely yung pagdating diyan paano kung meron probably isang investment company or mutual funds, okay, who approach us and say that we would like to actually create these funds for the purpose of investing in crypto and or digital assets. Again, dalawang ang nagiging issue dyan okay. Sa US halimbawa, why is it that it's very difficult, and I don't know if there is already I think that there's already a fund that has been approved, okay, for the purpose of being organized for the purpose of investing, okay, but the investment is not on the spot market of the digital assets, it's on the futures. And of course we all know that the main use of a futures market is actually to hedge, okay, any position in a commodity, and it wants to actually manage the spot prices, okay, but it's the future. Now they haven't approved of any fund that would be investing in actually the spot prices of these assets. Why? Because the hurdle that the SEC is challenging them is to prove to us the market integrity of those prices. Okay, and I think nobody has come up to tell them that these prices, you could rely on these prices that are being formed out there in the market. Okay, it's not about the exchange operator. It's not about, but it's more about that there is a lack of protection that is being offered, okay, in terms of the price formation. But I would like to go back to actually on the transparency and confidentiality issue, because to our understanding, transactions are identifiable. But the question is, can you attach a buyer to those transactions? Does even the exchange operator know who that the buyer or seller is? Okay, probably in the wallet in the wallet operation, yes, you can, but in the transaction itself, in the exchange of a digital asset exchange, can you actually identify who the buyer or the seller is? Not unlike in the current system. Definitely, if somebody buys, okay, the system at the PSE can see the code, meaning the client code, but the brokers know who is actually attached to that client code. Now, that is something that we would be hearing from any applicant, okay, who might like to actually be issuing digital assets or operating a digital asset exchange.
Ako, maraming salamat, Director Mioni. Wow, I wish we had more time. But I think we have time for key takeaways, no, for each one of us. In fact, marami pang nagtatanong about itong NFTs, P2Es. Keep the questions coming, no, because we will be addressing those questions, no, from everyone. Salamat, no, Hana Galiste, for that. But okay, key takeaways. Where are we going in the future? Let's start off with Nauman. Maybe 1 or 2 key takeaways, please.
Yeah, I would say that this is a transformative technology, and the data is permanent and the security is by design.
Thank you very much, Nauman. Transformation. Inflection point. Maraming salamat. Henry, key takeaways. And then please make sure, very interested ako at marami pa sa atin yung sa sinabi mong libro, Henry. But please, key takeaways first.
Okay, first, on the technology, it's something that every bank or every company should explore. We've proven it that it's useful in terms of increasing efficiency in your operations, and it's easy to use. Second, as an investment instrument, it's in the early stages. If you want to experiment and include it in your portfolio, it's at your own risk. As I guess mentioned by everybody, it's the regulation is still evolving. So treat it as a high-risk instrument and explore. But hopefully, venues like this, where it is discussed and vetted, helps the regulators form the right risk management framework and policies around it.
Salamat, Henry. Director Mel, key takeaways, please.
Yeah. First, I would just like to support what you said, that they are upon us. I mean, it's happening now. Based on our monitoring, there has been exponential growth in terms of the volume and the value. So and of course, I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of central banks right now that have already issued or are in the process of piloting central bank digital currency. So they really have the potential to revolutionize finance, to revolutionize the way we do things, manage the way we store our data, the way we manage our data, the way we design and offer products and services. But then again, for us to optimize the benefit of this innovation, we need to ensure, as regulators and as players, we need to ensure that appropriate safeguards and controls are in place, particularly those related to money laundering, cybersecurity, and consumer protection.
Very well said. Salamat, Director Mel. Director Mioni, we're down to our last minute. Please share with us, no, key takeaways for all our participants, and we have thousands and thousands of them.
We should be open to this innovation called the blockchain, okay, and called the digital assets. But at the end of the day, be mindful that you have to protect your investment. You have to ensure that the market that you are investing in has that integrity, okay, especially on the price formation. And make sure also that on the prevention of systemic risk, and that's basically a safeguarding of your assets. Make sure that the wallet operator wherein you would be putting in your crypto assets are indeed they are reliable. And as mentioned by the BSP, they have a list of those that they have looked into, and definitely that's one way of providing a safeguard to. In the meantime, eventually the SEC have to hold the bull by the horn and come up with these regulations on digital assets offering in digital asset exchange, and of course, again, applying the same principles of investor protection, market integrity, and prevention of systemic risk. Thank you.
Salamat din daw, sabi ni Jane San Jose, for all that you explained a while ago for the risk, and also Director Mel, papasalamat din si Billy Shoson for really exposing, sharing with everyone all your thoughts. And from me, not just from myself, but from the PSE, napakalaking pasasalamat. We deeply appreciate your time. I know it's Sunday. Salamat to Nauman. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Henry. Director Mel, maraming salamat. And Director Mioni, of course, maraming salamat. Thank you, everyone. Let's give them a big round of virtual applause. No? Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we have to put this session to a close. No, I learned a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts that are now floating to our heads. And then let's follow through on this, because this is just the beginning. We in PSE will make sure that we'll continue to touch base with you, especially with our regulators, on this very, very transformative product. And it's a journey, no? This is just a start for everyone. So with that, I'll bring the panel to a close. I'm turning over the floor now to our host, Danny. Take it away, Danny.
Thank you, Attorney Roel. Wow, what a huge session there. I think, exactly what you mentioned. It's just the beginning, no? So there's never going to be a clear conclusion to these discussions. You could go on forever and ever. But I think the key point is it's worth discussing. It's worth the debate. It's worth our time to explore these assets, and especially look how that is linked to policy as well. And at the end of the day, investor protection is the most important thing here, investor education, investor protection. So thank you so much to our gentlemen for that wonderful panel. And I'm sure you guys are really, really dying for more questions. And again, you can always rewatch on demand this entire discussion.